What's up guys, this is ScherBR talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Mysterious Exploration Romancing Festival Hardy banner that brings Hardy a multi-BP generator that can also decrease damage taken and does okay damage. Minstrel, a party support that can generate healings, defense boosts, and Aisha, a support healer for X Remembrance. I don't think she has a very good place on hard challenges, much like Minstrel, but Hardy does. Let's start talking about this guy because everyone wants to know if he's good enough. Well, we have 130% SDR. He's not even a full-time damage dealer, but that's pretty high. He has 91% endurance and 104% will. He's not going to take too much damage. He still has 115% agility because you can inherit MR's skills. That could be useful in Remembrance, but I don't think this guy will be using any type of MR skill anyway. Okay, Hardy starts the fight with 20 BP, and that's super important to the way he operates. He will also grant all surviving allies a 30% damage increase at all times, and also when you are hit by an indirect attack, reduces damage taken by 30% as well. So this is something that he has on his older style as well. Remember, but it was a little different. He will give this passive called Fair and Square, when you decrease damage taken by 30%, but you will increase your direct damage by 75%. You will do this for yourself, but also for the enemy. Now, he's not affecting the enemy, it's just for the party, and he will always be decreasing damage taken by 30% when it's indirect. Then on the start of round, he grants all surviving allies a max BP increase of 5 points, that lasts for 10 turns. That's actually interesting because of how sometimes you don't want to use your best skills, and the way he works, he will sometimes give too much BP to people where they will overflow. So having 25 helps. Now, when leading an attack, he will always chase with Healing Axe. Healing Axe is a C-power attack, slashing blunt, that recover the user HP by around 1.2 thousand based on his love. Okay, so he will always chase with self-healing that will keep him afloat. Then he has a 50% chance to chase with Skydrive Plus. Skydrive Plus, it's a slash and blunt attack, triple S power, that increases all other surviving allies' OG gauges by 15 points. This is exclusive to Global, and that's very nice. You can give OD points, and some people can get into overdrive faster because of this. And it's still damage. Remember that Hardy has 130% STR. Now he has a second passive called Fishing at the Mercy of the Elements. By the end of a turn, he will recover all other, not himself, surviving allies' BP. 4 different triggers, 4 different chances. 50% chance to give them all 1 BP, 37% chance to give them all 2 BP, 25% chance to give them all 3 BP, and then 10% chances to give them all 4 BP. It will happen all at once, like everyone gets 1, everyone gets 2, everyone gets 3, or everyone gets 4. It can trigger all 4 at once on a very, very low chance. 1, 2, 3, or none. So, I did the math, and it says that you'll be getting 2.4 points of BP by average on each turn. Okay, of course, RNG can be good or bad to you, and you can get more or less. Then we have Intrinsic Axe 4. When attacking with Axe, his damage increases by 20, so he has 50% damage increase because of his other passive. Then, when attacked by an attack that will cause resist, reduces damage taken by 40%, and then has a 37% chance to evade that resisted attack. Now, skill number 1 is called Ki Slash. It's a single target, just slash attack, that will recover the user BP by 2. It has E power, it's much like a normal attack where you get extra BP. The second skill, Fresh Sashimi Power, is a recovery that can be used on a single ally. It will be recovering around 1.8 thousand, and also 5 BP. You can only use this 2 times per battle. I don't think that's too useful, because you want to get BP with him, so using the first skill is always better, unless he needs to be healed, and you can use this on himself. So, it's pretty much like using Ki Slash, since you will be getting extra 5 BP, and you also get 3 by the end of a turn, meaning that in the end it's just like using Ki Slash. And the third skill is called Squid Fishing Dynamics, and it's a single target attack with double S power slash damage that costs 17 BP. That's right, it starts with the highest cost available, 20. and it will recover a random amount of all surviving allies' BP individually between 1 to 10. Okay, so we need to discuss this because this is his selling point. He starts the fight with 20. He can use this on turn 1. And each of your characters will receive a random value, much like when you use Blooming Fireworks Plus. So, you could say that the average is 5, but one character can get 1, other character can get 10. I would say that Hardy gets an average of 5, and that's how I would try to explain how he works on average. Because if you use this skill for 17 BP, and you get 5 back, by the end of turn you get another 3, you generated 8 BP after using skill 3. Okay, and then you get another 5 BP by use of Ki Slash. That leads us to 13 BP. And if you use Ki Slash again, then you have 18, right? That means that even if you get just 4 BP by use of Squid Fishing Dynamics, you will still have a perfect cycle of skill 3, skill 1 2 times, and then skill 3 again. That is if there is no one else in the party generating BP to Hardy. But how good is Hardy when you consider the older characters as well? You should say that 2.4 or let's say 2.5 BP every turn to make this even easier to calculate. And every 3 turns you get 5. Okay. 2.5 multiplied by 3, it's 7.5, plus the average of 5, you'll be getting 12.5 BP every 3 turns. Okay, 12.5 on average. What about Shirei? Shirei is the closest competitor, of course. Shirei is universal, and he has that very nice skill called Flooring Strings that increases BP limit, and he also gives max BP increase. Yeah, but his case it's for 5 turns, and he increases by 10. And he can keep casting this to increase, while in the case of Hardy, he gets it by start. Shirei does not start with as much BP, but he starts with enough to open with Flooring Strings. Okay, but after using Flooring Strings, you have 5 BP by the end of that turn, and on turn 2, you will get actually 6 because you'll be attacking with a normal attack. If you want, you can still use Light String Resto if you want, but that will decrease your BP generation. If you use a normal attack, you will chase with Light String Resto and you generate 6, meaning that you still have to do that 2 times to generate 12. You need 14. Shirei will usually use Flooring Strings again by turn 4. That's right. On turn 4, you can use Flooring Strings again. Okay, but now how much Hardy will generate? You can start the fight by using skill 3, Squid Fishing Dynamics, because everyone will have 25. That means that you can give them as much as 10, and they will be able to store it all. And then you will use Ki Slash twice, and then by turn 4 you are back to your rotation. You generated at least the average of 12.5 versus Shirei 10. See, on the average values, Hardy generates more than Shirei. But RNG can screw you up, you end up generating less. But Hardy has that 30% damage reduction to indirect attacks, and then you can double down if you use the Magia Fight formation that also decreases indirect damage by 30%. In the case of Shirei, he has that 15% damage reduction to everyone via this defense boost. Also 15% damage increase. So half the value, but this is general, will work all the time. So if your enemy uses mixed attacks, sometimes it may be better to bring Shirei if you want to decrease damage taken. And if they use more indirect attacks, it will be better to bring Hardy. See how they are very similar? Shirei also has other skills where he can bring some party support, like he can buff Will and ailment resistance, he can remove debuffs and recover a little bit of HP. He also always recover HP by the end of a turn, so that's also an extra. And there is a third character that is a competitor, Candy. Candy can be better than both, depending on the situations. But why? Candy generates BP when your party is hit by skills. He has his skill Friends Balloon Big March that you have 2 turns to generate 3 BP when you are hit by a skill. If the enemy uses skills at least 3 times in 2 turns, you generated 3. Okay. He gets 5 BP per turn. If you consider that you got another 3, well, that means you generated 8. The skill itself only costs 9. And when you attack on overdrive, you will chase with this skill, allowing you to generate another extra 3. After Candy gets running, he can keep using this skill almost forever. This skill is not just that, it also gives defense boost medium, at decreased damage taken by 25%. It only lasts for 2 turns, but sometimes you have this stacked 2 times and even sometimes 3 times because of the overdrive. And 3 times defense boost. It's awesome. Remember that Enya can only reach 3 stacks. Liz can reach 4 stacks and she's essentially usually better. But Candy can be used as a secondary defense booster, but also a BP generator. Okay, if you cannot generate as much defense boost or BP because the enemy is not using skills, then Harji is better. See where I'm getting it? These characters are side grades, and they are all premium levels. Harji is better if the enemy has indirect attacks, spells, or attacks that are indirect. Shirei is generally useful because he works everywhere, and Candy is better if the enemy is using mostly skills. Candy is better defensively. Harji will still generate as much BP, while he deals much more damage than Candy, while Shirei does okay damage, has extra support, but works everywhere. Okay, that's basically everything about Harji. You can still inherit this dimensional break to use on Remembrance Battle versus Siegfried. You can also inherit Punching My Way, because this is a buff break skill, and you can use this versus Vampire Lady on Remembrance Battle as well, increasing hard utility in the long run. But this hard is pretty nice because he is an axe user, and we lack good axe users for Remembrance. And if you are caring about future challenges, and we'll get much harder Remembrance fights with the Megalith Dragon and another boss that got released on JP recently, having Hardy will help you a lot. If you already summoned for Darius, well, they don't clash at all. Darius is a support that gives defense boosts and healings, while Hardy generates BP. 2 very premium supports that are also useful outside of Remembrance, something that is really rare when talking about X units. Based on that, Hardy, much like Candy, deserves a 4.5 grade out of 5. In my new grading system that I'll be explaining tomorrow, finally, because I know you all want to understand why we are not using the tier list anymore, at least for now. The next character is Minstrel, and Minstrel is a sword user with 128% STR, then 108% endurance, and 108% will. Very good status for a character that is support. You still have 108 agility as well, so 3 status with the same values. Moving on, when attacking, Minstrel will recover his HP and also his BP. That's important because he chases a lot. When leading an attack, on odd turns, he will always chase with Notes of Blessing. Notes of Blessing is an attack that is full AoE, D power, recovers HP by around 150 and gives 1 BP. Okay, slash damage. It's changing between the elements. And then you have a 50% chance to chase with Eclater Dharma. Eclater Dharma is a blunt and sun attack that will give you an attack boost that increases damage potential by 15% because it's rank 1, and also a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 25%. Both effects last for 2 turns and can stack. Okay, this happens on odd turns. On even turns, he changes around. Now, the guaranteed chase is Eclat Dharma, and the chance chase is Notes of Blessing. So, you theoretically will be granting at least 1 instance of each every turn. Thus, you have Notes of Blessing in this turn, and then Eclat Dharma on the next. So the average BP generation of Minstrel is at least 5 BP in a turn and 6 BP in the other turn. Why? Because Notes of Blessings will give you 1 extra, meaning that you got at least 6 in this turn and at least 5 in this other turn. But you can get +1 every time because of the extra changes, meaning that you can get as much as 6 and then 7 BP on a perfect RNG scenario. Okay. We need to discuss Eclairmaith later because you can also inherit this skill. But for now, we need to discuss this A Thrilling Tale. On the start of a turn, he will buff all surviving allies status by 30%. But by the end of a turn, he has a 50% chance to remove all buffs to surviving allies. I don't really understand why they did this, but it seems like having a passive that buffs 30% of all status on the start of a turn is broken. I don't think it's broken, but in many fights, bosses will remove your buffs. Sometimes every turn, sometimes every 2 turns, sometimes when reaching a Dire Zone. So this kind of restricts the character if you are using him together with people like Matriarch. And we will be using Matriarch in many fights when we are allowed to buff. Matriarch is useful even on fights where we are not allowed to buff because, first, you can buff with use of her exaltation. If you reach max level, this will be buffing by 30%. Same value as Minstrel, but in her case, it's just 4 status. Minstrel buffs all. And then you can buff all your status up to 2 times when you are attacking. If a character has a chase, it will trigger 2 times. So, when we are not allowed to buff more than 1 turn, she still increases the damage because every time you attack, you get status, right? So if you are using Matriarch and Minstrel together in a fight where you are allowed to buff, it's not good, because you'll be losing those things. Not just Matriarch buffs, but also the newest Rock Bouquet. She has a similar passive where she allows people to self-buff, but in that case, it's different. And she allows people to buff STR, Dexterity, and Intelligence by 20% max of 3 times. If people have more chases, this is better, but it's more about offensive status. But again, Rock Bouquet does not combo well with Minstrel if you are in a fight where the enemy does not remove your buffs by the end of every turn. If he removes your buffs at the end of every even turn, for example, well, Minstrel can remove your buffs in turn 1 and then you have nothing on turn 2. Sometimes you need to buff yourself every single turn, so you lost all of your fast that you just gotten, and you will not have on the second turn, you have to cast from 0 again, and then the boss will remove it on the end of that turn. So in certain fights, it will not matter if the enemy is removing your buffs every end of turn, but sometimes Minstrel just won't combo well with meta units and you will prefer to use someone else. And when attacking with swords, damage increases by 30% at all times, and when attacked, damage is reduced by 30%. Then we have Convalescence Slash, an AoE attack that has slash damage, only E power, but it recovers all surviving allies' HP by around 250, and it's too cheap for that. It's a good skill. Then the second skill is Support, and it's called Sparkling Tone. It's on all allies, and it will cast this passive called Peace of Mind, where each of your characters will have a 50% chance to remove all the buffs applied to themselves by the end of a turn. Each one will trigger that separately. You will also recover all surviving allies BP by 5, grant them this heat up, that increases damage potential by 15% for the whole fight, and a 5% defense up that decreases damage taken for the whole fight by 5%. I don't really think this is that impactful, because I know we don't have that many ways to cleanse the buffs, but it's just once per fight. If this was, I don't know, twice per fight, or if the Peace of Mind was a guarantee, so I know that a guarantee will be overpowered, especially because Enya can remove some debuffs via her Tropical Refresh. She removes debuffs applied to STR, Agility, Intelligence, and Charisma, but it's a guarantee. In the case of Minstrel, it's for all status, but instead, just a chance. I prefer Enya method because this guarantees. We don't play with RNG within you. Now, besides, you are recovering all the BP you spent and giving 5 BP to everyone else. That's a plus, and you should always start the fight with this. The third one is called Rainbow Slash. It's a full AoE attack with slash and stun damage. It will buff all surviving allies' endurance by up to 40% on max level. It has just C power, it's pretty weak. But then it casts a defensive stance that decreases damage taken from skills by 35% and lasts for 3 turns. The good thing is that you can have a defensive stance versus skills, versus spells, versus indirect attacks, versus direct attacks if it happens sometime, and still have one guard up, for example. You can cast all of this using defensive stances versus skills, and then a defensive stance versus indirect attacks can combo, so that you can decrease damage taken further. And you can cast one guard up and many stances of defense boost. And he can cast defense boost and he will stack with this. And you prefer to use this skill when you're fighting enemies that uses the skills. Okay, I know. And as you can see, Rainbow Slash and then Convalescent Slash is easy to do because you always have enough BP to cycle between those 2 skills. But the best setup of Minstrel comes from something else. It comes from Eclat d'Armée if you have his UDX style. Well, Eclat d'Armée, it's a 9 BP skill, even cheaper, and it will give you an attack boost that increases damage potential by 20%, lasts for 2 turns, and also that defense boost that increases damage taken by 25%, lasts for 2 turns. So if you are allowed to use this skill instead, you will have at least 2 stacks of defense boost, and sometimes 3 or even 4 stacks if you have a lot of VP generation, and you even get to double chase in that particular turn. So Minstrel can give you lots of defense boosts, but also relies on having this inheritance to make it better. You could still inherit Starlight Slash from his latest sword style, because that buffs will by up to 40% on max level, and gives a defensive stance spell large. But defensive stances are not stackable, so you cannot use it 2 times in a row. You find a difficulty as well because it's 12 BP, it's a little too much. The other inheritance that makes sense is Minstrel Notes, because this one will heal very small and give 1 BP by the cost of 9, actually costing just 8. And since you get extra BP when attacking and you can chase, you can actually keep running this skill a lot. But he's not a mass BP generator anyway, unless you are using him for remembrance fights and you need that extra BP for swords. But on swords, we basically have a lot of different utility in cards that will work anyway. Minstrel has a good design if you have inheritances. I would say that with the Eclat d'Armée inheritance, he will be a 4.0 out of 5. But without it, considering the future, I will give him only a 3.5 out of 5. The last characterization, and she has 117% STR and 75% endurance and 100% will. As you can see, she is better versus magical attacks, ailments, and debuff resistance, and can take some damage versus physical attacks. Then we have 90% dexterity because she can inherit S word skills. 92% agility is okay, but 85% love is actually pretty high. She can heal very well, and she is a main healer. Okay, she has 20% damage increased, and when attacked, damage reduces by 25%. Then it will decrease by another 40% if you are resisting. You will then have 37% chance to evade if you resist, and another 20% extra increase in damage. Now, on odd turns, counting from the start of battle, she will cast Guard Up Large to all surviving allies, decreasing damage taken by 35% in that turn only. It's nice, but I don't like the inconsistency of this, so only on odd turns and not on even turns. Then on even turns, you will then grant a Morale Up very large, increasing damage potential by 40% for that turn only. But she likes to save your best skills for even turns, and you can use your defensive skills on odd turns, or the reverse, I don't know, because it's better to cast defensive skills when you don't have the Guard Up anyway. Now, on every 3 turns from the start of battle, that means 3, 6, 9, and beyond, she will recover all surviving allies' HP by small effect. small effect, it's at least 1.5 thousand healing with Aisha, reaching probably as much as 1.8 when you start buffing. It's a lot, without having to cast anything. It's like a free Steel Blade Light every 3 turns, and just remember that she has 85% love when people like Mirza had very terrible love, just 40%. Okay, so Aisha, you get me a free heal every 3 turns, but not just that, she also gives 1 BP to everyone, including herself. Also, by the end of a turn, she gets 2 BP, so she's a 5 BP per turn character, and has a 50% chance to trigger the AoE heal that will recover around 300. Moving to skills. Quick Axe is a single target slash attack that will recover all surviving allies' HP by around 300, and it has C power by the cost of 2 BP. The second skill is called Earth Blasting. It's support, and you don't need an element for this. It can only be used once per battle. It will then grant this permanent HP healing by the end of a turn of around 300. She will then cast a Heat Up that will increase the potential damage of everyone by 15%, and a Defense Up of 5% that decreases damage taken by 5% only. It's 5 EP cost, meaning that she can cast this and get it back in the same turn, so free, and you should be using this on turn 1. And the second attack is Double Axe Rush, a single target slash and blunt attack that hits 2 times with B power and costs 10 BP. Okay, B power is not that strong. And every time that she lands an attack, she recovers the HP of all surviving allies by 300. Okay, so you'll be healing half of the Steel Blade Light with just this. It's nice because it's 10 BP, but it's not as powerful. And you can use this every 2 turns. Well, as you can see, actually, she gets 5, and she wants to use 12 BP rotation. So it may be better to start with Kick Axe, especially because you start with full HP anyway, and then use Double Axe Rush in the second turn. Eventually, you'll be getting a little more BP because of the 3 turns generation, so everything actually evens out later. So, that's her main kit. To heal a lot, cast the end of turn healing, have the extra chance to heal on the end of turn, give that hit up and defense up, and then be healing here and there via skill 1 and skill 3. Is it good enough for hard challenge? No. This is locked to remembrance battle because she just cannot compete with people like Liz that gives defense boost, whereas Aisha is not giving you defense, it's just 5%. That's really not enough. And there's just one good thing that she can inherit that makes a difference from her rapier style. There is this skill called Earth Thrust. It's single target, pierce and slash, and when the attack lands, grants the target moralidade medium, decreasing damage taken by 25% at the source. This could land into making Aisha more useful in hard challenges, but she's not that premium. Because we have characters like Gerard, like Sirius, like Enya, like Liz, and so on. But there is one good thing about Aisha. He has another style on JP, and this one has a very good inheritance, Bright Cycle of Earth, where she will be casting this start of turn buff to all status by 15%, and this attack boost of 30%, I think 25 because it's rank 1, every turn. Also, another defense up that decreases damage taken by 15% for the whole fight, and recovers 5 EP to everyone. Very nice skill, right? Reminds me of Minstrel without the penalties. It uses 7 VP, that's not that much, and you can inherit this and use it on your first turn. You will not be inheriting the S's Word skill that casts Moralidade instead. You'll be using this, and then after that, you'll be healing mostly with Aisha. The healings are very good, and you can just use the Moralidade effect if you don't want to summon for this one. This one is actually more of a debuffer with some defense support. But she works as she is for Remembrance because you need healing on Remembrance, and Aisha is the best one. Yeah, she's better than Darius for healing, but just remember that Darius can heal 3 times when he casts that Great Banquet of Enjoyment. Well, I must say that having both will be overkill most of the time, but it can be a guarantee that you will survive anyway. But if you got Darius, you are probably good enough for most of the content, unless you want to be prepared for the hard remembrances with the Megalith Dragon and future challenges as well. Well, Aisha is nice and all, but she is not really that useful outside of remembrance. Even with that very good healing, we have Liz, and Liz is still much better. And we will get characters that compete with Liz, like Gettard as well, like even Anya. I know Aisha heals more, but just healing is not enough. You need extra stuff like defense boosts or anything. But she still works nonetheless, and I believe she deserves a 3.5 out of 5 in my new grading system. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, in my opinion, yes. I will be giving it a silver award, because Hardy is nice and all, but he is not really a direct replacement for Sheree. Although he is better most of the time, he still competes with Candy as the 3 best EP generators, meaning that you don't need to have them all. If you do, you just have the perfect character for each moment. Aisha is nice and all as a healer, but she is not as good as future units for hard challenges, but it's awesome for remembrance if you care about that. Minstrel is just okay. If you have inheritance, he's much better, but even then, pretty forgettable, sadly. I'll be pulling on this banner, but I just want to get Hardy and Aisha. If I get Hardy too soon, I may even drop out of the banner, but I want an Aisha as well, since I want to pull on her banner in the future. But with all that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. If you want to wait, that's also a good idea, because Emerald Beyond is being released this month. There's a very high chance that we'll be getting their styles in UniverSe in global at the same time as JP. But if you like the cards, okay to pull, and I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.